This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Jeannie Yerman, and our guest today is Gino Pereira. He is the co-founder and CEO of NXT-ID. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you very much for having me, Jeannie.
It's nice to have you here. So your company basically authenticates users on mobile devices in that world of the Internet of Things. Of course, we'll get to the deeper details about the actual product and service. But for now, let's focus on you as an entrepreneur. This is not your first company, not your first rodeo, as they say. In fact, it's about your fourth or fifth startup. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, certainly. I used to work for large corporations. I had a pretty traditional start early in my career in finance. Became a certified accountant in England, had got an MBA in business and finance. And after a number of years of working for larger and larger corporations, I just found them stifling. And in fact, the CEO of a pharmaceutical company that I worked for said to me when I was leaving, he said, "One day you'll run your own company." And I was about 22 at the time, and I thought he was joking. But it actually turned out to be true. So it was a drive that I had that he'd recognized early on, even before I did. And so about probably 15 to 20 years ago, somewhere maybe 15, 16 years ago, I decided that's it, and I left a very large corporation, and I co-founded a medical device company, and I went from a palatial office to a really small little tiny office with broken windows in an industrial area with really cracked wooden floors.
Glamorous, right?
Yeah, that was the first step.
So, I imagine in those early days, going from the security of that big company and doing this, there must have been plenty of times when you said to yourself, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" Oh,
absolutely. That first day I phoned a friend and said, "What am I doing?" So, but it was something that I had a drive to do, and I kept at. There's some really difficult times, and I think for all startups there are really difficult times and challenging times. And you just have to, if you have a real business plan and a viable potential business, you've just got to buckle down and push through it.
Now, I had read that of your 4 or 5 startups, none of them have failed. And that is really extraordinary. What do you attribute that to?
Really perseverance. Timing is the one thing that you can never predict, particularly in a startup, and it's very difficult. But provided you have a good business that has value, you need to persevere to a point, and then at that point, it's probably attractive to somebody else. But the secret is just hanging in there long enough. I think there are a lot of good businesses that run out of money and go out of business that still do have a sound business proposition, but it's always going to take longer than you think. So it's going to cost a lot more than you think to get you where you want to go. And so with that in mind, I think if an entrepreneur has that mindset and is constantly aware of when they need to raise capital, what they need to do with their resources, how do they keep their business going, I think that's the key to some form of ultimate success.
So now that you've been through all these different startups, if you were talking to someone just starting out, what would be your best piece of advice for a new entrepreneur? Do it.
I think that really depends on their level of experience. I mean, if it's someone right out of college or business school with an idea, they're obviously going to need a lot of resources. They're going to need a good financial advisor. They're going to need somebody that can help them really put together a good business plan. They're going to need to have good access to legal counsel. So they're going to need a fair amount of resources to turn it into reality, because there's a huge difference between having an idea and execution. And execution is the only thing that counts. So they're going to need a lot of help. Somebody that's a little bit more experienced, less so, but it is going to be, but I would encourage everybody to do it. I mean, I love it. They've been great times. They've been really, really hard times, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
So there are a lot of young companies that have aspirations to go public. Your company currently is publicly traded. I imagine you've done both, kind of private and public. What would you say about going public?
I'm very glad we're a public company. It's a conscious direction that we took when we were raising capital early on to decide either to go the venture capital route or the public company route. And I've had experience of both public companies and private companies before. I like the ability to access capital markets very quickly. With venture capital, it's much more of a drawn-out process. Now, I think in the public markets, obviously, you have to make an effort to educate the public on what your business is, et cetera, and obviously, there's a lot of SEC compliance, and it's a lot more regulatory, as it should be. But I like that ability to be able to raise capital relatively quickly compared to venture capital, which tends to be long drawn out. I mean, one of the things that folks don't realize is if you're an entrepreneur and you're working on your business, if you take time away to raise capital, that's at the deficit of something else. And because you can only work so many hours a week.
Great point. Yeah.
So it's to the deficit of your business. So capital raising needs to be efficient, it needs to be short and contained. Otherwise, you could take your eye off your business, which in the early stages is a big problem.
Right. Very hard to step away from the business, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ market site. More with our guest, Gino Pereira, in just a minute. This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. We're back with Gino Pereira. He is the CEO of NXTID. Gino, hello.
Hello.
So, you know, you're a longtime finance professional, but you've gotten into startups over the years, last, what, say 15 years or so?
Yes, that's right.
And currently, NXTID, you authenticate users on mobile devices. Tell us a little bit more about this business.
So NXT-ID does exactly what you say. So we aim to take a large role in the emerging Internet of Things. So one of the things about the Internet of Things, which is where devices are all connected. So one day, you know, your car could be connected to your phone, to your watch, to everything around you. And in order for that to succeed, the key aspect is security, because now things are getting very personal. It's not even just your credit card any longer. I mean, it's access to your home, it's access to your car. It's about personal security as well as financial security. So, you know, being able to manage credentials and to authenticate who's doing what on the Internet of Things is going to be extremely critical to the ultimate success of IoT. And we have the skill set and to be able to do that, and we're pretty far down the road compared with most other companies to be able to provide those services.
It was rooted in 3D technology, right? 3D identification?
That's certainly one of our skill sets. So when we started out 6 years ago, we started as a three-dimensional imaging company for identification. And just as we started out, we started to see a lot of fraud going on in the payments industry. And so whereas 3D identification is one element or one skill set, we have a number of other skill sets. And so we actually looked at, you know, what were the causes of fraud, and it was a lost or stolen wallet. And our first product was an attempt to develop an electronic wallet that was highly secure. And that was our first effort. And gradually, the payments industry has evolved pretty quickly after that. And in order to keep up with it, we merged with a company called FitPay. And so now we're able to provide tokenized payment transactions, just the same as you see Samsung Pay or Apple Pay or Android Pay. We're able to provide that to all the multiple other non-Apple Samsung user customers that would like to have that type of technology on their devices. So our major customer is Garmin, and we're in the process of signing up a number of other ones.
So you have a history, though, in technology. Did you deliberately choose this technology? Did you have choices, or did it just kind of evolve? It was something that surfaced maybe over, having dinner with a friend, or, how did it come about, choosing this type of technology?
I think that we always try and create product for which there's market demand, rather than creating product because we can technically create product. And so we just saw a huge demand fairly quickly. There were a lot of announcements about very large credit card breaches. And so we saw a growing and large demand around security in this payment space. So that's why we directed our technologies to that space.
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of running your current company?
resources in general.
What kind?
And all resources, actually. So definitely.
Full money, all of it?
All of it, right? So with more, absolutely, with more capital, we could do more things quicker. With more resources, we could also advance the business quicker, which requires capital. But on the other hand, there's a balance between raising capital, particularly as a public company, because we're running this business for the benefit of our shareholders. So we want to be very certain that we have a positive result from raising capital rather than just raising capital for the sake of it. So we're very measured and considered about the occasions when we do that.
So if you were not doing this current business, what do you imagine yourself doing? Or do you have like Walter Mitty ideas of what you might be doing if you weren't running tech companies?
If I wasn't actively running them, I'd probably be investing in some startups and helping and advising folks. I mean, it's really an area that I really enjoy. Work-wise, I mean, other than laying on the beach, which I don't think I can do for too long, that's probably what I would be doing. I would like to consult with other companies, mentor them, and as well as maybe form an investment fund to invest in them.
So Gino, what would you say is your biggest success to date?
I think being able to uplist to the NASDAQ was a major success for us as a company. That, of course, is not, we're unable to do that without having success in the company itself to get to that status where we're able to do that. So I think that that's part of a scorecard that says that we're doing well. And actually, we got to a point of making our first, even though we're dipping in and out, but we got to our first operating profit level at the end of last year. So that was an achievement for a startup.
Congratulations.
Thank you. As we move towards making that more sustainable for us, but it definitely is a measure of progress for us.
That's great. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Gino.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much, Jeannie. I've enjoyed it.
From the NASDAQ market site, this is Business Rockstars.